If there's one thing the Monster Hunter community does well, it's nitpicking the flaws and merits of each entry into the series to a degree that microbiologists would be astonished at. For better or worse, discussion is constant, opinions run wild, and Twitter is the burning pile of effluent that it's always been. One popular discussion is what each game needs to have to be considered good, and this wavers so much you'd be a saint for making any sense out of it. However, this got me thinking, where exactly could the series go next? We've had Soaring Through the Skies, Diving Through the Depths, and Cat cosplay, so what's next? Well, I have an idea. My own opinion, of course, but I think that there's something this series could do. I'm CeraCymmetry, and this is where Monster Hunter could go next. The idea is simple, Monster Hunter Lightweight, an entry into the series that strips everything back in favour for focusing and refining the best thing about the games for me, the combat. Combat in Monster Hunter games is unparalleled, and I really don't think that there's any game that comes close to Monster Hunter at its peak. Of course the games aren't all about that, exploration, gathering, etc. is part of it, but it's called Monster Hunter, not Monster Forager. Imagine this, no wirebugs, no Y-stones, no underwater, no hunting styles. None of that stuff at all. The focus would be around taking the standard moveset of the weapons and refining them, fixing hitboxes and concentrating on having a solid baseline and foundation. You see, Monster Hunter Rise has a real problem with movesets. The focus on wirebugs has led to a massive over-centralization in what I call super moves. Hammer might as well not have a moveset outside of Impact Press. Axe Hopper, whilst fun, but just isn't the same. It's just the same shit over and over and over. Hell, even Sword and Shield can just lean on Shoryugeki for the most part. This idea of lightweight would do away with this. No super moves at all, and hell, even Longsword would lose Foresight and Helm Splitter in favour for giving Fade/iframes. Yes, I know that new mechanics encourage innovation, and this may sound like old thing good, new thing bad, but allow me to make a comparison here, which I'll do by mentioning Pokemon. You see, since 6th gen Pokemon, there's been a new gimmick that changes each installment in significant ways, which leads to a lack of overall identity and a loss of focus on the core gameplay. Let's compare this to Monster Hunter. You want Mega Evolution? You've got Clutch Claw, Z-moves, Hunting Arts, Dynamax, say hello to Wirebug. There is, however, an exception. The 5th generation of Pokemon, Black and White, as an example. When it came along, there were fresh new abilities, pretty cool fighting-based items such as the Type Gems and the Eviolite, but nothing drastic that completely changed the way that fights moved. However, you know what else those games did? They disregarded the previous entries. All brand new Pokemon, not a single returning one until post-game, and to me this made a world of difference. The whole game was given a new lease of life to an arguably tired formula, and the experience of not knowing and learning this brand new game was a genuine pleasure. If we now apply this to Monster Hunter, can you imagine just for one game, no Rathalos, no Rathian, no Diablos, just all new, stripped back, pure. An analog Monster Hunter rather than digital. Now I'm sure that many of you may cite Freedom Unite as an example of this, but personally I'm thinking of a game that wasn't invented around the same time as the Wheel and Fire. Portable Third, let's try that. Nice and simple, solid combat and a bunch of lovely fights that encouraged you to just get out there and hunt. Now, with a solid combat foundation and no distraction with any of these new features we see in later gens, I believe the focus would then fall to the monsters. With the lack of super moves or the need to counter things like absolute evades, monsters' movesets would tone down. Less AoEs that can't be rolled through, less need for monsters to play around power-crept hunter evasion arts, and more simple attacks based on patterns, tells, and positioning. Oh, and endgame? Well, I've thought of that too. You remember Arch-Tempered, Teostra, and Xeno'jiiva from Monster Hunter World? You know how they amped up the difficulty for the Elders, and also gave them a few new moves as well? Imagine that for all monsters, with a slightly different look on top of it. And as well as that, imagine if all these beefed up monsters gave unique drops. Suddenly, a monster like Puke Puke or Kuluyaku or Rathian is given a new lease of life and it becomes a challenge again to endgame hunters. Add on top of it new gear and new weapons for hunting said variants, using the existing enemies in the game to further elongate the life of the gameplay. I think that would be a genuinely pleasurable endgame, and then you could add some sort of relic grind if you so wished on top of it. Of course, I'm just one man, and this is just my opinion, which of course carries a death sentence on the internet, but I do genuinely believe that this minimalistic, lightweight, simplified Monster Hunter that goes onto its foundation of combat would be a breath of fresh air. Rise and its over-concentration on Wirebug moves worries me that future installments may end up crushed under the weight of all of these new bells and whistles, and we might lose sight of what makes Monster Hunter good and fun. But enough about me. What do you think? Would you entertain this notion of Monster Hunter lightweight? Is it something you're interested in? Maybe the possibility of a Monster Hunter with all brand new monsters and no returning monsters could be exciting. Can less really be more? Let me know in those comments, fellas. I'll see you all next time.